Hello, everyone on YouTube. Thank you for bearing with us with our technical difficulties with getting our live creation station to you today. So we are happening live right now, but the recordings will be available after the event as well. So if you need to revisit anything or if you need to pause and come back later, you will be able to do so. My name is Alana and I work at Rancho Los Cerritos. You might have guessed I'm not at Rancho Los Cerritos right now. I'm home bringing this program to you in your home or wherever you're watching from. But I do work at Rancho Los Cerritos, which is a museum, and it is composed of a historic house and historic gardens. And the house has been there for over 175 years. The history of the land goes back even before that. So people called the Tongva lived on the land before. The house was built in 1844 to be a cattle ranch, and then it became a sheep ranch, and then it was divided up into apartments and rented out before becoming a private family home. And that was the last time it was lived in before becoming a museum in 1955, which it still is today. And as part of the museum, you can visit the historic house and the rooms inside. You can visit the historic gardens. And we also have programs like this one and some on-site programs as well that we can offer to the public. So I'm very excited that you are joining me in this new format for this Creation Station program and excited to get started. So hopefully, you have picked up a craft kit from Rancho Los Cerritos. So this will have most of the materials that you need to do our crafts today, but you will need a couple other things as well, which you hopefully have around your home or something that you could sort of sub in if you don't have anything. You'll need some scissors. We are going to cut some things out, some markers to decorate, and then a pen or pencil. I do have both, but you really only need one to trace some shapes. And then I have a glue stick. You just need to be able to attach paper to paper. So whether that's a glue stick, liquid glue, tape, a stapler, something that you have around that you can use to do that. So I've got this over here. If you do have questions or comments throughout this event, you can put them into the chat and then I can answer those live. So I will be doing a couple of crafts with you and then kind of giving you that introduction, and feel free to make the crafts your own as well. So our crafts today are inspired by fall time and sort of by Halloween a little bit too, since that's coming up. So we have a tassel ghost. So tassels are things you might see kind of on carpets and rugs, sometimes curtains and things. And we're just going to make one and turn it into a little spooky ghost or a friendly ghost. And then a fall crown. Not that one. And you can make this just a general fall one or even more of a Halloween one. So we've got some things for that. So I think it's time we can get started. So it's time to open up our mystery bags, and these do have a staple. So to open it, you'll just need to pull that open and then watch out for the edges of the staple, which can be a little bit sharp. If you open the bag, ready to pull some things out. So first, what I'm finding in here is some pieces of different colored construction paper. So we'll use those. Another paper that has some shapes on it. We've got that one as well. And then I've got 3 long rectangles of construction paper, so a different shape than the other ones. And I've got a piece of cardboard in here as well. Couple more things. I've got some white yarn. It's in a little ball. And then the very last thing is a little packet that has some googly eyes in it. So they're wrapped up in tissue paper to make them a little easier to stay together. And it looks like that's everything from the bag. So now that we have assembled some materials from home and we've opened up the kits, I think it's time to get started with the first craft, which is going to be the ghost tassel. And I am going to pin a different view so that you can see what I'm working on a little bit more closely. So to do this craft, we need the yarn and this piece of cardboard and scissors. And we don't really need any of these other things right now. So I'm going to move all of these out of the way, put them off to the side. So the yarn is like the main material for these tassels or ghosts. And then I've got my scissors, and then the cardboard is going to help me create the shape that I need. So the first thing to do is find the edge of the yarn. And hopefully you can sort of unwind this without tangling it up too much. So we're going to first cut 2 pieces of this long string of yarn. And they don't have to be too long. And what I use as a guide is with this piece of cardboard, it's a rectangle. So it has a long side and it has a short side. I'm just going to wrap this around one time. So it's about double the length of the short side. You could even do it in the front. So it's like double the length. So wrapping it around, and then I will cut it right there. So I now have this kind of short piece of yarn, and I'm going to do that one more time. So there's my first one, and I will do that again. If I can pick up the cardboard. So I just use my thumb to kind of hold that around the edge. It doesn't have to be exact, but just right around the edge, wrap it around one time. And then this is where I want to cut it. So I now have 2 strands of yarn that are short. They're about the same length. One's ended up a little longer than the other. That's totally okay. And then I still have this long piece of yarn that's kind of in a ball over here. So this is what is going to create that tassel shape. And really the main step for creating this little guy is just wrapping the yarn around the cardboard. So the cardboard serves as a template or a guide for wrapping it and how long you want it to be. So again, it does have a long side on this piece of cardboard and a short side. So depending which way you decide to wrap that yarn, your ghost or your tassel will turn out just a little bit different. And let me see if I can find, here is an example. I made this one using the long side of the cardboard. So I wrapped the long way. And then this one is the short way. So you can see the long one is a little bit taller. And because it's longer, the yarn didn't wrap as many times around. And so it's not quite as full, it's a little bit skinnier. And then the short one, which I did this way, he is a little bit shorter, but then he ends up being a little more full with the yarn. So you can decide which way you would like to wrap it. I think to show you, I will do a short one. And so I'm going to start this off the same way when I was just testing the length for cutting these short pieces, just kind of pinching the yarn down with my thumb and then starting to wrap. I am going to be sliding the yarn off of the cardboard. So I don't want to wrap it super tightly where I can't slide it off, but just kind of loosely around the edge. And I'm just going to keep doing this for the whole rest of the yarn. So this step is probably the one that takes the longest, but this is what is building up your tassel, building up your ghost. So I'll just keep wrapping this. And after a while, this strand is still loose, but you can kind of let that go because he's not really going anywhere. And just keep on wrapping it around and around. And if you do feel like your ghost is complete, but you still have yarn left, feel free to cut it. I'm just going to keep going until I get all the way to the end of that piece of yarn. So he's going to be like a really full, maybe a little bit chubby ghost here. So I'm getting near the end. All right, so my yarn ends, it doesn't quite make it to the end of the cardboard on the other side. That's totally okay, but I've come to the end of my yarn and I'm just gonna wait about 30 more seconds in case anyone is still wrapping who's watching along with me. And then I will let you know our next step after those few more seconds have passed. And if you are done, you can start thinking maybe what kind of face you would like your ghost to have when we get there. So a scary ghost, a happy ghost. All right, so the next step is going to take one of these short pieces of yarn that we cut before. And we are going to kind of thread this between the wrapped yarn and the piece of cardboard. So what I usually do is just kind of grab this. If you can get your finger underneath, you can see I've created kind of a space between the yarn and the cardboard. I'm just going to put this piece of yarn through. And so now it's underneath, like I could lift this up with that. And then this piece of yarn is what is going to create this little loop that the tassel hangs from. So I'm going to tie this into a circle. And the circle can kind of be, you can make it a smaller circle. I'm just going to overlap the ends as much as I need to create this knot. And I'm going to do a double knot just so it's extra secure. And tie those and then kind of tug on it so it's really nice and tight. It's not going anywhere. So I've got that kind of loop at the top and then my wrapped yarn still here. And so that is sort of in between that yarn and the cardboard. And now that I have that loop, I'm going to slide the yarn off the cardboard. Sometimes if you kind of bend this cardboard a little, which already kind of bent on its own, that can help loosen the yarn. But even if it doesn't bend, you can just go kind of from each side a little bit at a time and slide this all the way off. So now I still have that loop. And then I've got this kind of bulky yarn, which is what used to be wrapped around the cardboard. So this is what is going to create the little ghost body. And so this other piece of yarn that we cut at the beginning is what creates the neck of the ghost. And so on these, you can see it was maybe a couple finger lengths down. That was how long the head was. But you can decide you might want to make it a very small head where you would tie this yarn up close to the top. You can have a longer head, tie it a little farther down. So I usually put it kind of straight on the table and then lie this kind of ball down on top of it where I want that neck to be, and then grab these ends and tie it again into a double knot. So there's one, and then there's that double knot. So it's got this loop still to hang. Now it has a little head, a neck, and then this bigger kind of lots of loops that were wrapped around the yarn. And this knot has some little ends that hang down. Those are going to blend into the rest of the ghost, so I'm not going to worry too much about those. The little ends of the knot from this loop you can cut, or what I usually do is just slide this around so they get hidden inside the head. And then I have a loop that doesn't have a knot in it. So it's up to you. You can trim it. You could tie it into a bow even if you wanted to. So the ends are not too big of a deal here. So now this has taken the shape of a ghost. It's pretty close, almost done with our first little ghost craft. So the final, or one of the final steps, is to now trim and cut through each of these loops on the bottom so that they become loose strands like this one. And you can do this one at a time, or maybe a couple of the loops at a time. You just get a couple of them and then cut through with the scissors. and just go through with all of these little loops wherever you find them. And for me, I don't mind if these strands are not all exactly the same length. I don't mind for my ghosts to look like that. I kind of like it actually, but you can go, if you do want them all to really be the exact same length, you can go back and trim these as well. So I'll just double check, see if I can find any loops that I missed, but I don't see any. So looking at this one, it does, you can see there's some different lengths in here. Maybe this one is a little long, so I could trim that one off. But like I said, I kind of like that it doesn't all end right at the same point. It kind of reminds me of a ghost made of smoke or something like that. So I've got this guy here. And now that is a tassel. We've created a tassel. And this is a craft that kids back in the 1800s might have done as well. I don't know if they would have turned theirs into ghosts, but it's something, crafts were something that could kind of fill the time before there were things like TV and video games, but it also could make a decoration or something that was useful as well. And so the final step now is if you want to add a face to your ghost. And if you do have liquid glue, you could use the googly eyes that were in the little tissue paper kind of packet. There are some googly eyes in there if you want to use those. I'm going to use a marker. So I have a black marker to draw the face. You could make the face any color you want. And I'm going to do it on top of the cardboard instead of on top of the table, just in case any of the marker kind of bleeds through. It's only going to go onto that cardboard. So because this yarn is not a flat surface, I'm basically going to make a shape like this, just kind of like a mix between a line and a circle. But since the yarn isn't as flat, I'm just going to have to go over a few more times to kind of create that shape. So kind of going back and forth with the marker in two spots to create those eyes. So there they are. And you can make them bigger, smaller. This is your little ghost. If you don't want to put a face on your ghost, that's totally fine too. You can have one that doesn't have a face. And then if you want to add a mouth, you again have options. I have a happy ghost here, sort of a surprise or spooky ghost. You could do all kinds of shapes. You could do like a straight line, more of a happy face, sad face. To do the surprised one, that was just another kind of circle shape. I might just leave this one without a mouth actually. So he's just got these kind of big eyes and then no other face. And that is our first little ghost craft. So again, if you have any questions as you're working through that, you can put those in the chat and I can answer them. But otherwise, we have kind of finished up that first craft. And we have one down, one to go. And so we are going to take just a quick little break. So we will come back at 1:25. So it's about a minute if you want to grab some water. And again, the recording of this event will be available after it is over. So if you do need to take a longer break and come back later, you can do that as well. And I'll be here when you're ready to come back. All right, welcome back from our brief break. And so now we are going to move from the first craft to the second one. So I will need the scissors again. And then now I will need some of those, the colored rectangles of construction paper, and then also these long rectangles of construction paper, as well as this sheet that has these different shapes on it. And other things like the markers and the pencil and the glue, we'll need those, and the googly eyes possibly as well. So this kind of takes all of the materials. It's gonna have a few more steps than the last craft, but it makes a pretty cool product in the end. So excited to do this with you all today as well. And so as a reminder, what this creates is a crown or even a headband, you can think of it that way. So this one is more of a fall. It's got fall leaves and a pumpkin. I also have one that's more kind of Halloween inspired. So you have some options with this. And I am going to show you how to make the base of the crown and kind of how to get it started, and then you are free to keep adding more and more things to it, and you are not limited by the materials in the kit either. So if you have things at home like stickers or fabric or anything else you want to add to these, go ahead and really create a crown that is your crown. So you are the artist, you are the creator, and each of these will look unique. And even if you are using these same shapes that we're providing, each crown turns out a little bit different, which is pretty cool. It's one of my favorite things about doing crafts like this. So the very first thing we can do is create that base of the crown, which is made with these long rectangles. There are 3 pieces. So some of my friends who are maybe a little bit younger or might just have a smaller head, you might only need 2. I need 3 to make it all the way around my head to create a crown base. So what I'm going to do is start with 2 first. I'll move these up kind of to the side. And I'm going to connect these 2 rectangles to make a longer rectangle. And you can connect these with tape or with staplers or with liquid glue. I'm going to have my glue stick. And I do want the pieces to overlap a little bit. If they only overlap a small amount, sometimes it's not really enough glue there to keep it together. So I like to overlap maybe a couple finger widths, just so it really gets that good connection. And I'm just gonna add my glue here. It's like this is kind of a funky glue stick, but so I've got glue. And now I'm just gonna get this other rectangle and put it over the top of that glue. And then I want to squeeze. And one thing that I do is I use my glue stick actually to kind of press down. And it does seem like perhaps I have frozen. Let me see if I can get back. All right, I think I'm back. So basically what I did was I put the glue on the end of this paper and then put the other paper on top. So it's really just connecting these 2. So between these 2 papers, there is glue to hold them together. And what that does is turn this into a longer rectangle, so long that it doesn't fit in the screen. So at this point, when you have your long rectangle, you might check over your head And for you, you might see that these pieces come around and overlap a little bit. So for me, you can see it does not go all the way around. So I need to now add this other rectangle. So again, I'm going to put some glue on the end of this piece. Let's go. This glue is working a little better. And so I've got that glue there. And then I'm going to add this rectangle on the top. And then press that down, kind of squeeze so those two papers really are getting connected with that glue. And what I was saying before, which I don't know if you saw, a lot of times I put the cap back on and then I kind of use the glue stick to press down. Sometimes if I try to use my fingers end up getting the glue and then they stick. So that's kind of a way that I found where things don't get quite as sticky. So now I have this extra long rectangle. It's three pieces of paper long. And now it is long enough to go around my head with a lot of extra. So similar to connecting the pieces that I have so far, when I close my crown, I do want there to be a little bit of overlap. So when I'm doing this, I don't need this entire flap that's extra, but what I'm going to do is kind of figure out, I want this to be loose enough I can take it on and off my head without squeezing my head too much, but tight enough that it won't just kind of slide down my face. So I think right here is where I want it. And I'm holding this where the extra flap is, right where the edge of the other end of the paper is. So when I open that back up and put it down on the table, I know that the other side of the paper reaches this far. So what I'm going to do, I'll just put a mark here, reaches about right there. And I want there to be some glue in this area, but I can probably trim off this part. This would just be an extra flap right now. So I'll trim that off. Don't need that. And so now if I am making this crown, it does come all the way around my head. It overlaps a couple of inches, but there's not too much extra. So I think this is going to work well as the base of my crown. And so the final step for making that base is putting glue on this end. And then instead of connecting a new piece of paper, you are going to kind of bring this around into a circle and connect it so that it creates this more of a circle shape that will be the base of the crown to go around your head. So I will now put my glue here in this area. So this again is what overlaps when it comes around my head. And then I'm kind of making this into a circle and then bringing this right where that mark was that I had for where my head shape is. And then I'm going to squeeze this down. So now I have my full circle, and this is the band or the base of the crown. So I put it on my head. There it is. It sits there nicely. And if your glue hasn't dried yet and you're trying it on your head right now and you need to adjust it a little bit, you should be able to do that with a glue stick or liquid glue even. And if you have a staple, you could take the staples out and kind of adjust it as needed so that you kind of have this, the size that you want. So again, I can take it on and off, but it's not sliding down my face. So I'm pretty happy with this base. And so now comes the fun part of decorating the crown with the shapes and kind of designs that you would like. So we did include in your kit a sheet that has some sort of fall Halloween shapes. So a leaf shape, a pumpkin shape, a cat shape, and a ghost shape. And you have the different colors of construction paper. So to show you some of the samples, again, this was a cat with a couple of leaves. This one is like cat, a pumpkin, and a ghost. So really more of a Halloween. And then this other one is really just fall. And this one used some shapes that are not included. So you can use just the ones that we've included. You can kind of pick and choose, or you can create shapes of your own. So what I will show you is using these shapes as a template. And so to do that, what we'll do is cut a shape out, and then that we will trace onto whatever color of construction paper we want. So something to keep in mind, the more curves and kind of curly cues and corners that are in the shape, the trickier it is to cut out. So the cat, it has this little tail, it's got these points up here. So that one is probably one of the trickier ones. The ghost has this one long shape and then some little curly cues here. The leaf, it's mainly these two kind of curves. And then the pumpkin has some little kind of lumps in there too. So you can keep that in mind as you're choosing your shapes as well. And what I will do is I'm going to cut out one shape. And so I invite you to cut out one shape along with me. And then after this program has ended, you can keep going and add as many shapes to your crown as you would like. So I'm going to start with this leaf. And this, that's one of the things in Long Beach, where I live, and probably a lot of you are close by if you were able to pick up your kits from Rancho Los Cerritos. The leaves don't change color as much, but that's one of the things I've always liked about traveling or looking at pictures of other places, is when the leaves change colors in the fall. So I'll cut this one out. And again, just pick which shape you would like to start with and cut it out, and then we will be tracing it. So it's the template that will help us create the shape in the color that we want. All right, so I have my leaf. And again, you might be cutting out the pumpkin or the cat or the ghost, or you could create a shape that's all your own. For that, you might not need to use a template. You could just draw it directly on the paper. So I'm going to kind of put those aside, and I'll give it a few more minutes. I know some of those shapes take a little bit longer to cut out than others. So we'll wait one more minute, and then we can keep going with the next step. And remember, you are able to put any questions that you have into the comments, or the chat, I should say, of the video right now. And so I can see those and I can answer those live. So if you're having any questions about the craft or about Rancho Los Cerritos in general, any steps that are a little bit tricky, you can type those in, and I can do my best to explain those to you. And we do have many trees at Rancho Los Cerritos, which all have leaves. And again, not that many change colors the way they do maybe like on the East Coast, but they do kind of turn brown in the fall and fall off in the winter. And so if you come on site, you can see lots of different trees. And even if you've been to Rancho Los Cerritos before, the thing about the gardens is that they change all the time. So even if you were there a few weeks ago, if you came today, it might look a little bit different as different plants bloom and different plants kind of dry up for the winter time, which is when there's not as much green, but still lots of growing, changing plants at Rancho Los Cerritos. And I've been calling it fall, but it's also called autumn, which I think that comes from Greek. I like fall because the leaves fall. And so it's descriptive. It makes me think about what actually happens. So hopefully you're finishing up, cutting up your shape. And again, if you need to kind of pause and come back later, the recording is going to be available. You can keep watching this as many times or come back whenever you want to. But I'm going to show you now kind of the next step, which is tracing and then cutting out the shape again in a color. So for the leaf, I could make it green or yellow or orange. I do yellow. If you are using black, which I'm not going to do, but it's easier to trace with a pencil. A pencil mark will show up. Lead, it does have a little bit of shininess in it. So if you use a pen, you can't always see it black on black, but that pencil will pick up some of the light shining. So if you are going to use the black, I would recommend tracing with a pencil if you have it. I'm going to trace with a pen just so you can see my work a little bit better. And just in case I want to make something else with the yellow, I'm going to trace my leaf kind of off to one side so I still have that if I would like to use it. And then to trace it, I'm just following the shape with the pen right along the edge all the way around the shape. I'll just keep going until I have kind of closed up. And so now I've made it all the way around, and I had some little spots where it didn't go perfectly, but that's okay because it's going to get cut out and then glued down. And so if that's showing, I can always just glue it the other way and nobody will even see it. So I'll put my leaf away. And now it's time to cut the shape out again. So you do get to cut things out twice, lots of cutting for this craft. And just the same way as before, just kind of following that line all the way around, whoops, to cut the shape out. All right. And again, I do have more yellow. So if I wanted to cut out another leaf or maybe one of the other shapes in yellow, I'd be able to do that. But I'm just going to start with one shape with you now. And again, after our little live video has ended, you can keep going. And then I did have something to share with you while you're kind of finishing up cutting. There is one tree at Rancho Los Cerritos whose leaves really do change color, and that is our Ginkgo tree. And the Ginkgo tree is cool in a lot of ways. The leaves, you can kind of tell on the left side of this picture, are a different shape than kind of a more common leaf, definitely than the stencil that I just did. They're more the shape of a fan. So that's kind of unique. And they also, the Ginkgo tree has been around for so long that it's known as a living fossil. So a lot of times when we talk about fossils, they're dead things, right? They're like dinosaur bones or old seashells that are from millions of years ago. And the ginkgo has been around for millions of years, not this exact tree at Rancho Los Cerritos, but the ginkgo trees in general. And they're still alive. So they're a living fossil. And the leaves do turn this beautiful golden color. And so this tree, it's kind of in the back corner of the garden at Rancho Los Cerritos, and you might not notice it other times of year, but when it turns gold, it brightens up that whole corner of the backyard. It's really beautiful to look at. And so it's one of my favorite trees that we have in the garden, partly because it does change color, but it also has so many other cool things about it. And ginkgo trees are originally from China, so they had to be brought by someone to the United States, and people started planting them, and then I guess really liked them because you can see them in a lot of different places now. And here's my little yellow leaf, which is not a ginkgo shape, but it is ready to go. And so hopefully you have kind of finished cutting out your traced shape. So cut out your shape the second time. If you did cut out the ghost on the white paper and you only want one ghost, you don't even need to trace it necessarily. So I have my leaf, and you do now have the option. I could attach this directly to my crown, but I think I want to decorate this leaf a little bit. So I have my markers over here, and I think maybe I'll just do black. I'm going to draw in some sort of veins on the leaf to make it look, have a little more decoration on it. So leaves usually have that kind of one line that goes down the center, and then some other lines that kind of go off, maybe like that. And depending which shapes you use, you might want to decorate them with markers like this. You could cut out other shapes with paper. So like this one, the jack-o'-lantern, that could have been marker, the black, either of these. But cat eyes, if you wanted to cut those out of a different color, you could do that and then glue them on. There's also googly eyes, which you can glue on. And I'm going to put some googly eyes onto my leaf just because I think that would be kind of fun. So I'll open up this little packet, and you should have two of a kind of bigger size and then a couple sets of smaller ones. I'm going to do the bigger ones. There we go. Yes. Look at this happy little leaf. And to attach the googly eyes, you can use liquid glue, but even a glue stick will work as long as you kind of squeeze those down. So let me make sure I got quite a bit of that glue on there. Stick it where I want it. And then I'm going to do that trick of using the glue stick cap to press down, just because I can tell I did get some glue on my finger. And what's happened to me before is if I have glue on my finger and I try to squeeze that down, then I end up sticking my finger to the googly eye and then it lifts off. So I'll just squeeze with this glue stick. And then, yep, those are attached. And I think now I'm actually going to give him a little mouth because I feel like he's missing that. And I'll do that with wood. There we go. So now I chose my shape, I cut it out, traced it, cut it out again on a colored piece of paper, and I have decorated it. And now my shape is complete. And what I will do is attach it to the crown. And I think I will just put him, I have kind of an edge right here where two pieces of paper were coming together. So there's two different pieces and kind of a crack. So I'm going to glue this leaf down so that it covers up where that crack in the paper is. And I'm going to just put the glue onto the crown paper just because I have the googly eyes on the leaf. If you don't have googly eyes, you could turn this over and put the glue on here and then attach it. It'll work either way since it's paper to paper. This might be a little more glue than I needed, but I think it'll work just fine. So I've got the glue here. And I'm gonna put my little leaf on that glue and use my glue stick again. Press that guy down. All right. And there I've got my first shape attached to the crown. If I put the crown out, I could be done. I could just have one leaf. And how cool does that look? Super cool is the answer. And you can keep adding shapes. You can leave with just your first shape. And again, you can add, if you have stickers or anything else around your house, you can keep on adding to your Halloween or your fall crown to really make it your own. And I bet you, even if you cut out a leaf, even if you made it yellow like I did, your crown probably looks a little bit different than mine because you are your own artist. I am my own artist. And I think I can unpin this view and then just be me so that I can say thank you all for joining me for this creation station in our kind of new format. It was a lot of fun getting to virtually be with you. And if you have any questions right before we sign off, you can put those into the chat. And I hope that you will come back to Rancho Los Cerritos. Please feel free to wear your crowns when you visit. I would love to see some people in some awesome Halloween crowns at Rancho Los Cerritos. We are open to the public Wednesday through Sunday, 1 to 5. And then on Saturdays, we actually have extended hours. So we open at 10 a.m. and we're open until 5. And when you come visit, you can walk the grounds or walk the house by yourself, or you can take a tour of the house, a tour of the gardens. And we even have scavenger hunts in English and Spanish. And I also have a survey. If you would like, if you have watched this, if you're watching live, or if you are joining us afterwards, this QR code will take you to a survey, and then we'll also put it into the chat. You can follow that link. So we'd love to get some feedback from you about what your experience was with Creation Station. And hopefully we'll see you next month. We'll have kind of the same setup. So the third Saturday of the month, I will be live online walking you through the crafts, and you can pick up a kit for free of the materials you need for those crafts at Rancho Los Cerritos during those public hours, starting the 1st of the month. Depending what day of the week that is. I think that's actually a Monday. So it'd be starting the 3rd of the month during public hours. You can pick those kits up, and then we'll have the same experience where we open those up and we make some crafts together on the 3rd Saturday of November. I'll have some more kind of fall themed crafts as we get really into autumn or fall of this year. I don't see any last questions. So again, thank you so much for joining me. And hopefully I'll see you back again online for November. Bye, everyone.
I'm still watching the end of it. Do you have YouTube on?